Welcome to another episode of Contentstack Live with our host Jeff Baha. We're excited to have Girish Sahukar, Vice President of Dawn Foods, joining us today to talk about what's in their stack. So let's dive in.
Hi, Girish. Welcome to Contentstack Live.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So this is the first in a series called What's in Your Stack. So we get to have people like yourself, customers, come on and talk about what's in their tech stack. So before we dive into that, maybe we just start, with introductions. Tell us a little about yourself, where you're from, company you represent, what you do there, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Girish Sahukar. I'm the VP of Digital at a company called Dawn Foods. If you don't know who Dawn Foods is, don't worry about it. We are a global leader in baking ingredients, manufacturing, and distribution. We are over 5,000 people, team members globally, and we manufacture and distribute our products in 110 countries globally. What we do is we manufacture cake mixes, donut mixes, filling, icing, glazing, anything that a professional baker needs to make their sweet treats and sweet pastries. We supply the ingredients for those bakeries to make those sweet treats. We've been in business for 100 plus years. We started out as a donut shop in 1920 in Jackson, Michigan. We are headquartered in Jackson, Michigan today, and I'm coming to you live from Boston, where I live.
Oh, thank you. As you were saying that, I'm doing two things. I'm counting all the calories that I probably ingested and all the different types of treats I've had that involve these products. So tell us a little bit more about what your day job looks like there. And we can get into maybe from there some of the projects that you've been working on.
Yeah, my day job essentially it involves owning, operating, and has our B2B e-commerce solution and all the associated customer-facing digital platforms within our company. When we talk about digital Dawn Foods, encompasses a whole bunch of things. First is the e-commerce that I talked about. Second is our corporate websites. We are a global company, so we have websites in 19 different languages, as well as other platforms that are needed to support those websites. On a day-to-day basis, my team and I are responsible for making sure our sites are up and running, our e-commerce is flowing, as well as making sure our customers have a fast, responsive, speedy experience on all these platforms.
Very cool. So 100-year-old company, e-commerce, digital. So I'm very curious, like what's been going on? It kind of prompted the team to think we need to think e-commerce, we need to think digital. What did you do? What did you stand up?
Back in 2017, 2018 timeframe, as the company was getting towards the 100-year mark, it started asking itself the question, what does business with our customers look like for the next 100 years? Because the way we had operated up until then was our customers would have a sales rep show up at their door, walk through their storage, take a look at what they had ordered the previous week, what they had left in storage, and write up a new order. And the sales rep and the customer would go through the list of items the customer wanted for the next week. They would shake hands when both were satisfied and they went their ways. At the end of the day, the sales rep took all those orders that they had written down from every customer and they would bring it to the warehouse. The warehouse would pick, pack, and load a truck. The truck would go out and deliver the products next day. And that's how we operated for the vast majority of our company's being up until 2018, when the company realized the next 100 years will be different than the first 100 years. So we needed to do something different. And when we asked our customers what that meant, customers said they wanted more self-service options, meaning they wanted to do business at their convenience with us and not when our sales rep showed up. If you know anything about the baking industry, the bakers work usually from midnight or 1 a.m. until 8 or 9 in the morning. The sales rep would work from 9 to 5. So there's not really a big overlap in when a sales rep works and when the baker works. So you have to show up when the baker is in the store. And typically that means at the end of a baker's long rolling workday, they're not really interested in talking to you at that time, right? They want to go home and lie down and take a nap. At the end of a long day, that's probably what most everyone wants to do. And our sales rep is bright and early, and that's not a great overlap there. So customers were asking, almost demanding self-service options. The company recognized that it did not have the skill set in-house to understand what that meant, how to go about building that. So they brought in a chief digital officer, Bob Howland, and he in turn recruited me to come join him in 2019 to get e-commerce off the ground. So that's how we got started.
I know we've had Bob and a few other of our programs talking about that, so it's great to know. Much of the people, you yourself and the team underneath you that actually made it happen. So I understand now, from that, what's prompted you, what drove you in this direction. Where did you break down the technology choices and how did you arrive where you've arrived at? And tell us something more about, what that looks like.
Yeah, from technology perspective, when I got into Dawn, really quickly, I looked at the e-commerce space and tried to figure out what does a B2B e-commerce solution look like in the modern timeframe. Having been in the e-commerce space for a long time, I knew what the previous era of e-commerce stack looked like and built it, ran it, operated it, ran businesses that leveraged using e-commerce, using those, legacy monolith technologies. What I was curious about was in trying to understand what is the evolution that these platforms and technologies are having. Since the last time I looked at the space, several new things had happened. How did it become a mainstay across all technology landscapes? Companies were embracing cloud and migrating a lot of their workloads to the cloud. APIs were becoming much more popular, and API-driven websites and e-commerce was becoming fairly easy to build and accomplish and run. Emerging technologies such as GraphQL, React, and AngularJS frameworks were powering these modern day applications. So question I had was, what were e-commerce platform vendors doing to keep up with this evolution in technology? So we talked to pretty much any company that said they had an e-commerce platform, and we asked them, what are you doing now? What is your platform going to look like in the next 12 to 24 months to 36 months? One thing became clear in those conversations. Most of the vendors said that they were making their platforms to be available through APIs, API first, API led, API only, API blank, insert your own objective, right? That gave us the insight that, there wasn't a architectural disagreement. Every e-commerce vendor, platform vendor was saying that they were making their platform to be workable through APIs. So we said, if that is the case, we want our website to be fully API driven. So we drew up an architecture of various e-commerce entities working with our different systems in-house that we already had and other systems we needed, interacting only through APIs, exclusively through APIs. So we then put that architecture on the board and said, what platforms, technologies, and vendors can fit into this architecture? With that, we selected our commerce platform vendor, and based on that selection, we then said, okay, we need a content management system. What's a leading content management system here that will fit into this architecture? And we landed with Contentstack.
Okay. And then I'm kind of curious, this terminology, do you refer to this in your own, like when you're talking about this amongst your team and the organization, is it a composable architecture, or how do you frame up like those ingredients that you've outlined there?
Yeah, we've used interchangeably headless, composable, and microservices-based architecture, all those things. At the end of the day, all of these are labels to explain a architecture. Effectively, what we have implemented is a well-known, long-standing architectural principle called backend for finance, or BFF architecture design pattern. That's been around forever. It's a well-known architectural pattern, published, vetted, reviewed, and it is not so much of a disagreement about, what this is, right? At the end of the day, the only people who really care about what this is and how we describe it is really the technology folks and not so much the business users. The business users want a easy to use, less context switching kind of an interface. Give them what they need to do in one interface, let them do it in that interface and move along. There is not a do this particular part here, then do this next step here in this tool. That is very expensive and requires a lot of training. Instead, our approach is to build one user interface that allows all of our business users to do their work in one single interface.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Are you able to reference who to use for commerce?
Yeah, we use commerce tools for our commerce APIs. Like I said, it's connected to Contentstack for content management related needs. And then we use Algolia for search. And we use Salsify as our PIM.
Nice. Okay. And then on the specific in the e-commerce workloads, what metrics did you have in your mind? Obviously there's a pretty stark before and after in this case, but how do you measure the success in that project?
Internally, we set some benchmarks. We looked at what other B2B food service e-commerce companies were doing, how their e-commerce adoption was going, and we set targets based on that. And every metric we had, we either achieved it within the first year or within the second year. So every time we hit a metric, we reset the goal, we moved the target, we set a newer goal. And over time, over the last 3.5 years, we've achieved the vast majority of our objectives that we initially started with.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I certainly know that there was numbers that Bob was stating for amount of transactions that had moved to digital year 1, year 2, but I know it was a pretty significant achievement.
We're a private company. We don't share transactional data. What I can tell you is for the customer segment we launched e-commerce for, e-commerce has become the primary way of doing business with Dawn. The vast majority of customers in that segment transact with Dawn through e-commerce. It's a fairly significant and meaningful percentage of our business today.
That's fantastic. Let's shift gears, talk about the .com project and a little bit more kind of what were some of the challenges that you're looking to kind of address there and what you did.
When we launched e-commerce in 2020, one of the things we did as we prepared for it was as we selected the technologies that I was talking about, commerce tools and Contentstack, we brought in internal experts that had some idea about a content management system or were using a content management system in other parts of our business. Corporate websites ran on a content management system. So we brought in the person that was running those websites while we were evaluating content management systems for e-commerce. As soon as that person saw the demo, they went, this is fantastic. And can we move all of our corporate sites onto this? And we were like, maybe, but we don't know. Let's think about it in a year or two. And, we'll try and find a way to do that. So over time, we kept having that conversation again and again to the point where we really saw the pain points that the legacy monolith-based content management system was imposing on that team that was managing our 20 different corporate sites. And nothing was easy or straightforward. It took a fairly long time to compose and publish a single page. Yeah. And it took a lot of time and effort and external help, whether it was help from developers or designers or content authors, content publishers, what seemed like a small army platoon to publish content. And with Contentstack on e-commerce, it was basically business users who could come in, type what they wanted, click publish, and it would be live. So there was a pretty immediate and value in terms of content publishing, speed at which content would get published on e-commerce that wasn't there on the corporate sites. So over time, the corporate site team put together a project and had us lead it so that we could migrate all the 20 corporate sites onto Contentstack.
For the translation, is that done manually? Is that done automatically with a translation SaaS service?
Yeah, we use a SaaS service. It is not automatic. It's not real time. It is done offline. What we mean by that is we put the content together in English, ask the translation service to translate it and give it back to us in preferred languages. And then there is local marketing teams in several countries, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Canada, Mexico, etc., different countries. They go in and they look at that content and they change and tweak translation to make it more Dawn voice and Dawn tone that we use in the markets in our other marketing so that it harmonizes across all of the other content. Then it is entered into the CMS. So that was basically how we operated. So it's not real live translations. It is authored and reviewed, vetted translations. What we do instead of trying to automate translations is we put the man in the middle or human in the middle. It gives us, from our experience, a better deliverable at the end of the day. So that's been our approach. Where we have automated something is whenever a certain piece of content is published, when a new recipe is published or a new insight is published or some other standard type of content page is published, what we do is we leverage the Contentstack Automation Hub to programmatically send that published content to our search engine. Angolia is our search behind the scenes. That new content is indexed. If content is updated, it updates the existing record in the index and it's available for search. So as soon as the content is published, within milliseconds, it is available in the search as well.
That's fantastic. So yes, then it ripples through all the 19 sites that are then set up.
Yeah.
Can you share in terms of the metrics or measurements for success around just, again, it sounds like there's the benefit of the collapsing the different CMS instances. Is there a way to help people think through how to measure that? And then the ongoing, obviously the role of Automation Hub, again, metrics for the before after kind of experience and how we might kind of quantify that.
I think the biggest benefit in terms of metrics is the speed to publication. When we are trying to put something together in market, the pace at which we can publish now has given our teams, our marketers, content authors, content publishers more time to come up with thoughtful designs, better creative, better content. So rather than trying to have everything ready weeks and weeks in advance, they now have more time to come up with that. They can do a better design. They can spend more time researching rather than rushing everything through. The translations have better sort of time frame to work with. In addition, we're seeing much more engagement with the content because it's easily presented. It is our front is a single page application, so it is very responsive and snappy, even on tiny mobile browsers. It works at a lightning speed, so that allows users to have a better experience. They can see a lot of content. They can interact with it. There's a lot of value in looking at recipes. And it allows us to combine our content and commerce. So we've seen a fairly significant uptick in traffic. I think more than 20-25% increase in traffic this year since we migrated all the sites over. We migrated one site at a time, so I don't really have apples to apples comparison over last year. We'll probably have that next year. But right now, what we're seeing is anecdotally between different sites, traffic is up 20 to 25%.
That's amazing. We often talk on the product marketing sites, we write a lot of this collateral. We talk a lot about content velocity or developer velocity. It's really good to hear in your terms, really, that's what that really means and what that really plays out real terms for you or for your team.
Content velocity is there. The developer velocity is there. We see that. I tend not to use those terms because, they are
right.
Trying to make it more accessible. Enough gory terms and, unwieldy sounding jargon. I try to shy away from all that.
That's why you're here.
One of the great things about, our team and our stack in terms of publishing content, there's no need for anyone with a developer background to be involved. There's not a developer when content is being authored in the CMS or being published using Contentstack. There's not a developer around to handhold the content author, content publisher, content manager, etc. And they are independently doing their work The content authors don't have HTML, CSS, or JavaScript skills. They are purely content folks. They understand content. They understand how to create engaging, compelling content and how to use the tools that they have at their disposal in the form of the CMS to publish it. And the reason why we don't want them to become developers, that is not their core skill. Their core skill is marketing, right? They know content. They know how to create engaging content, compelling content, how to drive audience to our site using compelling content. We want them to think about that more and not about the HTML, CSS, JavaScript part of it. So the more the CMS can do, the more the components we give them can do automatically without needing to write any code, the better off they are in the long run. And that's been our philosophy from the very beginning. There might be content publishing happening right now as we speak. Nobody from our team is involved or even informed. And we don't need to be, right? Nothing that happens is going to take down our running production site. We're not necessarily there to handhold anyone. We don't need to.
So I'm going to ask another question, kind of building on that. More an organizational question, right? Because it seems like as we talk about this, it starts out for some, very technical, microservices, API first. But then as you talk now, this is really about ultimately arriving at a system that a content editor who needs to know nothing about that can interact with. What's your experience? What might you be able to share or help in terms of guiding other people? Like, where does this fall organizationally?
Yeah, organizationally, I've worked in both of those environments where this sort of sat in the business with individual team members having to have that personal relationships within IT and IT system owners. I've also worked in organizations where this was entirely within IT, and IT worked with some business leaders that ran the business to understand their plans and execute it. At Dawn Foods, we have a somewhat different structure than those two. My digital team is independent of both IT and the business. We sit separately from IT or business. Digital is a third leg of the stool to make the IT and business realities happen. We control some of the technology ourselves directly, and we work with the business on their initiatives. We also interact and consult on other initiatives within the company. Sometimes there are technology initiatives, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are related to something that we do. So it allows us to have our team engage across the enterprise in different ways, depending on the nature of the initiatives that different departments or different business units are working through and looking at. It gives them a expert team, if you will, in certain capabilities and certain skills that allows Dawn to have a global proficiency in or a global capability in digital. And it allows the digital team members to then go work cross-functionally across different departments and business units. Yeah. So we like our approach in that sense that we own product engineering operations and, running the business.
Yeah, this is a really helpful perspective. I think something that we'll want to, explore further. I mean, obviously, I think you've got an interesting model that would be great to see how that continues as you invest more in different projects. But I think also for other organizations that are trying to stand up these types of things, and it's probably not uncommon that they wrestle with the right organizational balance. And yeah, I think this is interesting because it gives you a neutral potential position to really then assess what the needs are on both sides.
Yeah, there are different ways of going through a digital transformation journey. Essentially, when you think about digital transformation, you're thinking about two axes. One is along the lines of improving customer experience and delivering transformation through that way. The second one is improving internal efficiencies and driving transformation through that way. These are not mutually exclusive. You can, go back and forth between customer experience and internal efficiency. You can either go, sort of in a stepwise function. You can go through one approach or the other approach. Or the fourth approach is to stand up an entirely new unit that helps you transform and then bring back the learnings into the organization where new processes, new tools, new ways of working are adopted. So we're doing a bit of both, in effect, where we've got this digital team that is seen as a new unit that we've spun up to take on the largest transformation effort in the company, and then working internally within to improve the internal efficiencies of several departments and several business processes.
Yeah, and the planning horizon is, I'm wondering how some of the people in the audience will kind of relate, but this is a 100-year-old company going through an exercise for what we want to be and anticipate for the next 100 years. That's, I think, again, from that perspective, right, that's probably need a separate independent organization to really think through without quarterly restraints, annual restraints, right, to really see that through. It's really a good kind of model to adopt and to think about.
We're blessed. We're a private family-owned company. We can take these longer time horizons on these kind of initiatives where we're not trying to work on a quarterly basis and trying to report quarterly earnings and how we've done. Don't get me wrong, we still have that same kind of pressure for sure. We need to deliver quarterly results. We need to deliver our annual plan, etc. But because we have somewhat of a private entity that we answer to and not a public reporting structure, it makes life a little easier on these kind of transformation journeys where, there's one quarter you can invest more or pull back depending on how things are going, and you're not committing upfront to a vast majority of it like you do in public companies. Here we can make that commitment much earlier and stay committed a lot longer and get to that value realization process over time.
Yeah, presumably a little more on your own schedule, your own time. That's very insightful. Well, this is Contentstack Live. We do have a live kind of studio audience. We do release, formulate some questions as we kind of go through. So I'll turn it over to Austin and we'll see what we have there for you. But this has been just super insightful. So thank you. Austin, what do you got?
Yeah, we got a couple. This one is, where do you find yourself and your team going to stay current on the latest tech and best practices?
That's a great question. Sometimes these things come to you. Sometimes industry shifts are so big that you can't escape it, right? When you think about cloud adoption, it just came out of nowhere. 2008, 2009, people were still buying servers and racking, stacking was still a thing. 60-day lead times were still a thing.
Yeah.
By 2012, AWS was a pretty significant player, and Azure came along, Google Cloud came along, and other clouds from other service providers came along. And those kind of shifts happen, fairly rapidly, and you get to hear about them in your network through your own team members, or as you understand from industry movements, you get those. Where you essentially have to keep your ear to the ground is when you're looking at very specific types of platforms that you're interested in, like e-commerce or content management. You have to go to more industry specific events and build your network in those groups, and over time learn what's happening, what's new, and get in front of analysts and talk to analysts and get their insights on what's going on. So you can read all the trade publications. A lot of them do a good job of pointing where new emerging trends are, what's rising, what's falling, etc. So multiple different ways in which you can keep up.
Yeah, it's one of the things I probably like about this industry is it's constantly reinventing itself, but you need to stay on the ball in terms of where that information's going and coming from, and how we consumed information or got access to it just even a few years ago was significantly different now. This space constantly changing. So it's great to hear how you're doing it, how your team is doing it. Austin, got another one?
Yeah, we got one more. So looking ahead, what's got you excited in terms of new projects and technology?
Oh, there's no dearth of excitement. Got plenty of work to do, not enough time. Over time, we have collapsed a lot of our customer-facing digital platforms When we started out, we had, a separate payment stack, or payment portal, a separate way for some of our customers to order versus others who went through sales reps. We had all these corporate sites that lived on a separate technology stack. Over time, what we've done is we've pushed more and more of these dots together and combined them into a single technology platform. So we are doing the same thing. We're consolidating our technology stack essentially to provide a single pane of glass for our customers as well as for our internal users. So expanding that single pane of glass, providing more capabilities, a role-based access, if you will, behind the scenes of, if you're a sales rep, this is what you get access to. You can see your customers. You can see your customer performance. You can, co-browse as your customer. And then if you're a customer, giving them best-in-class tools to shop online, to be reminded, to get inspiration, ideas, get recipes from us, buy the products that are required for those recipes, etc. Right? And then if you're a business leader, you want to see how your business operations are going, providing them the tooling and the dashboards internally in that same platform. One UI, one experience that delivers different capabilities based on who's access.
It isn't just rolling out all the time then.
Pretty much.
Features, yeah. Wow, it's impressive. Okay, so we definitely need to get you back to your day job. So thank you. Unless there's anything more that you'd like to add, this has been tremendous. I know you've got a lot going on, so thanks for taking the time out of your day to spend it with us. And if you're up for it, we'd love to have you come back. There's obviously no shortage of things you're going to be working on and opportunities to share more of your success. But Girish, thank you so much. And for everyone out there, we'll see you soon.
Jeff and the team, thank you so much for having me. And I might just take you up on your offer of coming back soon.
Please do. Thank you.
Be sure to check out the show notes for relevant links and content. To learn even more about the power of going composable, head to contentstack.com.